I've been in this game long enough to see fortunes made and fortunes lost, not once or twice, but time and time again. And I'll tell you right here, if you remember nothing else, remember this: there is one rule that saves every trader. Just one. It isn't complicated, but it isn't easy either. That's why so many fail to keep it. You see, speculation isn't about tips or hot news. It's not about clever talk or what your neighbor thinks the market's going to do. It's about discipline. Pure and simple. And the rule I'm speaking of, the one that saves you from ruin, is the rule of cutting losses. Always. Without hesitation. Without argument. Without that little voice whispering. It'll come back. Tell me something: how many times have you held on to a stock, watching it sink point after point, because you told yourself, it's only a temporary dip? Didn't it cost you more than you ever imagined? Didn't you feel sick when you finally let go, far too late? Every trader has lived that pain, but the wise ones, the survivors, they learn from it. The fools repeat it until the market empties their pockets and teaches them the hard way. Now, don't think I say this like I've been immune. I wasn't born disciplined. I had to learn it. When I was a young pup trading bucket shops, I thought I was smarter than the tape. I'd watch a stock tick against me and tell myself, the market's wrong. I'm right. It'll turn back my way. But the market doesn't give a damn about me or you or anyone else. The market is never wrong. The only thing wrong was me, and my refusal to accept the simple truth: when you're wrong, and you've got to get out. That's the rule. Now I can hear some of you thinking, but Jesse, what if the stock really does come back after I sell? And I'll answer you with another question: would you rather take a small, sure loss, or risk a ruinous one that takes you out of the game? The man who keeps his stake alive lives to fight another day. The man who bets his whole roll on pride, he's finished. You can't win if you're not in the game, can you? That's the funny part about human nature. It fights this rule tooth and nail. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Nobody likes to lock in a loss. We're wired to hope when we should be fearing, and to fear when we should be bold. That's why the great majority never make it in speculation. They let hope dig their graves. Think back to the last time you held a loser longer than you should have. What did hope do for you? Did it pay your margin call? Did it restore your capital? Or did it whisper sweet lies in your ear while the market went about its business of taking your money? I'll tell you plain, hope is a 4-letter word in trading. The only friend you have is discipline, and discipline is nothing more than following that one saving rule. You cut your losses. Always. You don't argue, you don't debate, you don't pray. You sell. You take the loss like a man, and you wait for the next right opportunity. And let me tell you something else: a small loss never hurt any trader that I know of. It's the big ones that do the killing. A little scratch here, a little scratch there, those you can live with. But the moment you let one trade grow teeth, you're finished. The market will take you apart. Haven't you seen it happen to others? Haven't you watched some fellow boasting about his sure thing, only to vanish from the game when the sure thing turned sour? The stock market is a cruel teacher. It punishes weakness without mercy. That's why I keep saying this rule isn't optional, it's survival. Would you walk into a battlefield without armor? Would you swim with sharks after cutting your leg? Then why, for heaven's sake, would you stand naked before the market, refusing to protect yourself with the simplest of rules? And I know what you're thinking, Jesse. It's easier said than done. Yes, it is. Much easier. Because the hardest part isn't the mechanics, it's the mind. Your fingers can sell in a second, but your mind drags its feet, clinging to hope, to pride, to excuses. The fight is always with yourself. Isn't that true in your own trading? Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I was long on a stock, heavy, thinking I had it right. The tape turned against me. Every instinct screamed to hang on, to wait, to believe I was smarter than the crowd. But the tape doesn't lie. So I sold. Took a loss I didn't like, but I took it. And what happened? That stock kept sinking for days, for weeks. If I'd held on, I'd have been ruined. Instead, I lived to trade again. That one act of discipline, that one rule, saved me. and it saved me more times than I can count. Do you know what separates the amateurs from the professionals? It isn't brains. Plenty of smart men go broke in Wall Street. It isn't gutsy. The gamblers have guts, and they blow up just the same. It's this rule. The pros cut their losses fast. The amateurs let them run. That's all the difference in the world. Which side do you want to be on? Think of it like this: when you're wrong, your position is poison. It's eating at your capital, your judgment, your nerve. The longer you hold it, the weaker you become. But when you cut it, you free yourself. You have cash again, you have clarity, you have the strength to act on the next opportunity. Isn't that better than being chained to a corpse of a stock, dragging it around with you like dead weight? And don't forget, the market doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care what you need or what you want. It doesn't know your entry price, and it won't turn back to save you. The market is like the sea. It moves where it moves, and you either ride the tide or you drown. Do you think the sea owes you a favor because you bought a ticket on the wrong boat? I want you to understand this in your bones. The one rule that saves every trader is to take your loss quickly, completely, without hesitation. If you can't do that, then all the charts, all the tips, all the strategies in the world won't save you. You'll just be another lamb led to slaughter. Now ask yourself, why are you really in the market? To prove you're right, or to make money? If it's to make money, then throw your pride in the gutter where it belongs. Pride is expensive. Pride will bankrupt you faster than a string of bad trades. But humility, discipline, the willingness to admit you're wrong and act on it, that's priceless. Haven't you noticed how the men who last in this business are never the loudest, never the most boastful? They're the ones who act when they must, without fuss. They keep their capital intact. They obey the rule. And remember, no stock is ever too high to buy or too low to sell. Prices are what matter, not your opinion. When the market tells you you're wrong, believe it. Don't argue with the tape. The tape is always right. Haven't you seen men ruin themselves arguing with the tape, insisting the market is crazy? The market may be crazy, but it's richer than you, and it'll stay crazy longer than you can stay solvent. You see, there's no heroism in holding on to a loser. None. There's only foolishness. But there is strength, there is wisdom, in taking a small loss and moving on. That's not weakness. That's survival. And survival is the first step to success. Would you rather be a dead hero or a living trader? I'll tell you another thing: the best trades I've ever made were never the ones where I held on stubbornly. They were the ones where I waited for the right setup, struck, and if I was wrong, I got out. Fast, clean, and the market always gave me another chance, but it never gave me back the money I lost when I disobeyed the rule. Haven't you found the same in your own experience? So when I say there's one rule that saves every trader, I'm not talking theory. I'm talking from scars, from lessons paid in cash. And every man or woman who has lasted in this game will tell you the same. Cut your losses. Cut them without mercy. Because if you don't, the market will do the cutting for you, and it cuts deeper than you ever will. The market is never wrong, your opinion is. That truth has been written in blood and money for as long as men have speculated. Yet it is the hardest thing for traders to accept. People think the market is some machine that can be reasoned with, argued against, or persuaded. They imagine it cares about their theories, their research, their confidence. But the market is bigger than all of us. It's the collective voice of millions of minds, the weight of money flowing in and out, the constant battle of fear and greed. When the tape prints a price, that price is the truth of the moment, no matter what you believe. Do you think your little opinion, no matter how clever, can override that? Let me ask you, how many times have you watched a stock move against you and told yourself the market was wrong? That the crowd was blind, that you were the smart one seeing what nobody else could? And how many times did that thinking pay you? Did the market turn just because you insisted it must? Or did you watch your position sink while the market marched on without a glance at your conviction? Every trader has lived that scene. Some only once before they learn. Others repeat it until the market strips them clean. I've been there. When I was young, I used to believe the market had to recognize the same things I saw. If I thought a stock was worth 50 and it was trading at 40, I told myself it was bound to climb. Sometimes it did, and that fed the illusion. But when it didn't, when it sank to 30, then 25, I still clung to the notion that the market was making a mistake. Who was wrong in that case, me or the market? The market always spoke the truth, and I was the one lying to myself. That's the lesson traders don't want to hear. It bruises the ego. We all like to believe we're sharp, that we've outthought the crowd. But the tape doesn't lie. Price is the final judge. Your analysis, your reasoning, your hunches, they're all just opinions. The market is the verdict. Don't you see the difference? One is an idea, the other is reality. Ask yourself, what pays you your opinion or the price? Can you deposit a belief in the bank? Can you buy groceries with a theory? No. It's the price that counts. If the market says your stock is going down, then down it is, whether you agree or not. And if you refuse to listen, if you call the market wrong and yourself right, you're setting yourself up for ruin. Haven't you noticed that the traders who last the longest are never the ones boasting about being smarter than the market? They're the ones who bow to it, who take the price as gospel, who obey the message of the tape. The trouble is, people mix up two things, being early and being right. Sometimes your opinion might turn out correct, but if the market doesn't agree now, you're still wrong for the moment. Being early is the same as being wrong in trading, because the market can move against you longer than you can afford to wait. Haven't you sat on a position, bleeding, while telling yourself, one day they'll see I was right? And what did that do for you when your margin ran out? The market doesn't owe you recognition. It doesn't run on your timetable. If you're right too soon, you're wrong in practice. If you're wrong entirely, you're doubly ruined. The only way to survive is to stop caring about being right in opinion and start caring about being right in action. The market is never wrong, your opinion is. That means you adjust to the market, not the other way around. Do you think the ocean will change its tide just because you command it? Or do you adjust your sails to move with it? I remember times when I thought the public was mad, driving prices higher than reason, higher than earnings justified, higher than my judgment could accept. I wanted to fight it. But the market doesn't care about reason. It moves where money flows. So I had to learn not to fight the tide, but to ride it. If the market is going up, it's right, even if every bone in your body says it's irrational. Haven't you seen bubbles swell while wise men stood on the sidelines, sneering? The market rewarded the obedient and punished the proud. Which camp would you rather be in? And think about the other side. How often have you seen traders cling to a falling stock, saying, "This is ridiculous, the company is solid, the fundamentals are strong." Yet the price kept falling, eating them alive. The market was never wrong. Their analysis might have been clever, their arguments sound, but their money disappeared all the same. Why? Because they mistook their opinion for fact and called the market mistaken. The market was simply telling the truth that supply was greater than demand, that money was leaving, that price was lower. What more truth do you need? It's pride that blinds traders. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Nobody likes to bow before something bigger. But pride is the costliest luxury in speculation. You can afford to be wrong a dozen times if you cut your losses. You can't afford to be proud once if it keeps you from obeying the tape. Pride turns a small mistake into a disaster. Haven't you noticed how much cheaper humility is compared to stubbornness? Now, I'm not saying the market is wise or just. It isn't. It's a mob. It's greed and fear tangled together. It's mistakes and overreactions piled on top of each other. But it is always right in price. Price is the only fact. Your interpretation, your forecast, your logic, those are guesses. The tape is the truth. Which do you trust more, guesses or facts? The greatest danger is thinking the market is wrong, and that it will soon correct itself to prove you right. That's the gambler's whisper. That's the lie that empties accounts. The market may correct eventually, or it may not. But in the meantime, it can grind you down, margin call after margin call, until you're out of the game. Haven't you seen men who were right in the end, but broke long before the end arrived? What good did their correctness do them when they had no capital left? So when you place a trade and it goes against you, the first thought must not be the market is wrong, but I am wrong. Maybe wrong in timing, maybe wrong in direction, maybe wrong altogether, but wrong all the same. And the only smart thing is to act on that fact. Don't argue with it, don't plead with it, don't wait for it to change its mind. The market has no mind, it only has price, and price is final. Tell me, which would you rather be, right in opinion and broke, or wrong in opinion and rich because you respected the market? That's the choice every trader faces, day in and day out, and most fail because they choose pride over profit, ego over survival. They tell themselves, the market is wrong, I'll wait it out. And the market, indifferent, keeps draining them until they vanish. The smart trader never argues. He watches the tape, and when the tape says he's wrong, he accepts it instantly. He cuts the position. He takes the lesson. He lives to trade another day. That's the discipline that separates the survivors from the rest. And that discipline comes from one unshakable belief: the market is never wrong, your opinion is. Discipline beats intelligence in the market. You may think brains are what separate the winners from the losers, but I'll tell you flat, that isn't so. I've seen brilliant men who could figure out anything in mathematics, men who could memorize entire books, men who had logic sharper than a razor. I've seen them all come into the market and get stripped down to nothing. Their brains didn't save them. In fact, their intelligence often became their worst enemy. Why? Because they thought being smart made them safe. They thought they could reason their way through the market, but the market doesn't reward cleverness, it rewards discipline. Do you know why? Because discipline is what keeps you alive when your intelligence tells you lies. Ask yourself, how many times have you known better, but didn't act better? How many times have you recognized a position was wrong, but refused to cut it? That wasn't lack of intelligence, was it? You understood what was happening, but you didn't have the discipline to obey your own understanding. And what happened? The loss grew larger, and intelligence was powerless against it. Haven't you noticed that the most painful mistakes aren't the ones you didn't know about, but the ones you knew and ignored? Discipline is stronger than knowledge. Knowledge tells you what the market should do, but discipline tells you how to survive what it actually does. A man with discipline can be wrong half the time and still come out ahead, because he manages his losses and lets his winners run. But a man with intelligence and no discipline can be right most of the time and still end up broke because he lets one mistake destroy him. Which man would you rather be? When I started trading, I was quick with numbers and sharp with patterns. I could read the tape faster than most. But even with those advantages, I would have ruined myself if I hadn't learned discipline. The tape doesn't reward fast eyes alone. It punishes undisciplined minds. There were times when I thought I was the smartest fellow in the room, and that thinking cost me, because smartness gave me excuses to disobey the rule. I'd say, I understand this stock better than the others. I'll hold it a little longer. I'll prove I'm right. And the market punished me until I understood that intelligence without discipline is nothing but vanity dressed as skill. Have you seen the man who reads every financial report, studies every chart, and still loses? He isn't short on brains, he's short on discipline. He overtrades when he should be patient. He hesitates when he should be bold. He clings when he should cut. All the knowledge in the world can't save him, because knowledge without control is useless. Do you think the market pays you for knowing facts, or does it pay you for acting correctly when money is at risk? Discipline isn't glamorous. It doesn't make you sound brilliant at a dinner table. People prefer to hear about big theories, clever predictions, secret formulas. But discipline is the quiet strength that keeps you standing while the clever men fall. It isn't about predicting the market. It's about protecting yourself when prediction fails. And prediction always fails eventually. Haven't you seen the greatest forecast come undone by one piece of news, one sudden shift, one unexpected panic? The disciplined trader doesn't need to be a genius. He needs only to follow rules faithfully. He needs to know when to cut, when to hold, when to stay out. He doesn't break his own code. That's why discipline beats intelligence, because the market is designed to exploit human weakness, not human brilliance. It knows how to tempt you, how to scare you, how to trick you into betraying yourself. Discipline is the shield that stops you from falling into those traps. You can hand two men the same information, the same chart, the same tape action. One is brilliant but undisciplined, the other ordinary but disciplined. Which one walks away with money? The disciplined one every time. The undisciplined genius may analyze faster, but he'll sabotage himself. He'll jump in too early, or too heavy, or refuse to get out when he should. The ordinary man who follows his rules will cut when he's wrong, sit tight when he's right, and avoid the overtrading that wrecks most accounts. Intelligence without discipline is like a racehorse with no reins. Fast, but bound to crash. Think about it, what ruined the great booms and panics of the past? Was it lack of intelligence among the traders? No. Many of them knew exactly what they were facing. They had seen it before, but they lacked the discipline to stop themselves from joining the frenzy. They let greed and fear run them. They ignored their rules, or they had none to begin with, and the market swept them away like driftwood. Haven't you seen it even now, people who know better, yet still rush in because they can't control themselves? Discipline means you act the same way in every condition. You don't let excitement or despair change your behavior. When your rules say get out, you get out, no matter how hopeful you feel. When your rules say stay in, you stay in, no matter how fearful you feel. Do you realize how rare that is? Most traders are slaves to their emotions. They buy because they feel greedy, sell because they feel scared, and call themselves unlucky when the market punishes them. But it isn't luck. It's lack of discipline. Intelligence loves to argue with the market. Discipline doesn't argue, it obeys. Intelligence says, this move makes no sense. Discipline says, the move is happening, so I'll follow my rule. Intelligence says, the fundamentals don't justify this price. Discipline says, the tape is the only judge. Which one survives? Which one makes money over the years? Haven't you seen your own intelligence talk you into staying in a trade you should have left, or chasing a move you should have ignored? The truth is, the market has humbled more brilliant men than it has ever humbled ordinary ones. The ordinary man with discipline never lets his losses grow too big. He never risks too much. He never lets his emotions ruin him. That keeps him alive. The brilliant man without discipline risks everything on the strength of his ideas, and the market has no mercy for that. The market respects only one thing: discipline. Do you think it cares about how clever your opinion is? Or does it care about how long you can stay in the game? Discipline is a habit. It isn't something you switch on and off. You practice it every trade, every day. You cut every loss, no matter how small. You never cheat yourself by saying, just this once, because once becomes always and always becomes ruin. Intelligence looks for exceptions, loopholes, special cases. Discipline knows there are no exceptions. The rule is the rule. Do you follow your rule, or do you make excuses? That answer determines your fate more than any chart or theory. When you look back on your worst trades, was it because you didn't know enough? Or was it because you didn't act on what you already knew? That's the dividing line. Knowledge is plentiful. Discipline is scarce. That's why discipline beats intelligence. Because discipline is action, not thought. And the market only pays you for what you do, not what you think. Every trade is just one of many. Never marry a position. That's something most traders refuse to understand until the market teaches them the hard way. They fall in love with a stock. They call it their baby. They give it nicknames. They defend it against all reason. And then one day that same stock guts them like a fish. A position is not a spouse, not a child, not a treasure to guard with your life. It's just one play in a long series of plays. Treat it like anything more, and you're setting yourself up for ruin. Tell me, haven't you ever held on to something longer than you should, simply because you felt attached? Didn't it cost you more than it should have? The market doesn't care about your feelings. The market doesn't care how long you've held, how much you've believed, how passionately you've argued for your position. It doesn't know you exist. It moves by money, not by sentiment. So why tie yourself emotionally to a stock or a trade? A stock is just a number moving up and down. A trade is just a wager with risk attached. Why would you marry that? Haven't you seen enough traders ruined because they refused to let go of a position that was bleeding them dry? I've watched men lose fortunes because they turned a trade into a romance. They bought a stock, and when it went up, they called themselves geniuses. They bragged about it. They swore it was the only stock worth owning. They convinced themselves it was theirs, and that it could never betray them. And then the tape turned, the stock began to slide, and instead of cutting it, they whispered, "She'll come back." She has to. But stocks aren't loyal companions. They don't love you back. They'll drop to nothing while you cling to them, and the market will bury you alongside them. Every trade is one of many. You take your shot, you manage your risk, and if it doesn't work out, you move on. That's the discipline of speculation. Think of trades like soldiers in a battle. Some will fall. That's expected. You don't mourn every soldier individually. You keep your army moving. You keep fighting. But if you treat one soldier like your only child, you'll hesitate. You'll falter, and you'll lose the war. Isn't that exactly what happens when you cling to one position instead of treating it like just another in the line? You can't afford attachment in speculation. Attachment blinds you. It makes you see what you want to see instead of what is. You'll ignore the tape, you'll explain away the losses, you'll make excuses for the stock like a man making excuses for a bad partner. It's only temporary. It'll change. I know it. But does it? How many times has a bad stock turned around simply because you wanted it to? How many times has loyalty paid you dividends in the market? When you marry a position, you stop being a trader and start being a believer. But belief has no place in speculation. A trader doesn't need belief, he needs clarity. He needs to see what's happening and act on it without hesitation. Belief ties your hands. Belief whispers that you must stay when your rule says go. Belief convinces you to hold while the tape screams sell. Haven't you seen it in yourself, that inner voice that refuses to admit you're wrong because you've invested not just money but pride and hope into the trade? The truth is, the market is a long game. You'll make hundreds, thousands of trades if you last. Each one is just a step. Some steps are forward, some back. But no single step decides everything. It's the accumulation, the pattern, the discipline across all trades that makes or breaks you. That's why you can't marry one position. It doesn't deserve that weight. It's not special. It's just one more in the line. Why would you risk your entire career on one stock, one trade, one opinion? I've done it before. When I was younger, I'd find a stock I thought I understood better than anyone. I'd load up, I'd hold on, I'd tell myself this was the one. And maybe sometimes it worked. But the times it didn't, the pain was enormous. The losses were bigger than they had to be because I treated the trade like destiny instead of just another hand dealt. Eventually, I learned that every trade must be disposable. You can't cling to them, you can't romance them, you can't treat them like family. They're business, nothing more. Do you treat a broken tool like a family heirloom? Or do you toss it aside and reach for another? Think of it like a card game. A professional gambler doesn't fall in love with a hand. He plays it, he folds it if it's weak, he moves on to the next. He knows there will always be another hand. But amateurs get stuck thinking one hand is their fortune, so they keep betting into it until it destroys them. Isn't trading the same? Every trade is a hand, and you must play it with discipline. You never marry a hand. You never marry a trade. The danger of marrying a position isn't just financial, it's mental. It locks up your judgment. You can't see new opportunities because your mind is chained to the one trade you won't let go of. You miss cleaner setups, better chances, because you're too busy nursing your baby. The best traders I've ever known are ruthless in this sense. They cut, they move on, they don't look back. They understand that attachment is a luxury no trader can afford. Do you realize how much opportunity you've missed simply because you couldn't let go of one loser? People often ask me what the hardest part of trading is. It isn't finding opportunities. The market gives those freely. It isn't even being wrong. Every trader is wrong half the time. The hardest part is letting go. It's detaching your ego, your pride, your sentiment, and treating every trade like just another play. And that requires constant discipline. You have to remind yourself every day that no trade is special, no stock is sacred, no position deserves loyalty. Have you trained yourself to think that way? Or do you still fall into the trap of seeing one trade as your big chance? The market punishes attachment with the cruelest penalties. It knows how to tempt you into falling in love with a stock when it rises, only to crush you when it turns. It knows how to feed your pride, how to whisper in your ear that you've found the one. But there is no one. There are only trades, hundreds and thousands of them, across a lifetime. If you treat them like replaceable tools, you'll endure. If you treat them like romances, the market will break your heart and your bankroll. And so I say again, every trade is just one of many.